The Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja has ordered the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, to resume academic activities with immediate effect, while approving permission to appeal the ruling of the National Industrial Court only after it resumes. The union was given a 7-day period within which to file for the appeal against the judgment by the National Industrial Court. Take a look at this crisis between ASUU and the federal government.
The appeal court has dismissed the Academic Staff Union of Universities application for a stay of execution of an earlier ruling of the National Industrial Court directing the university lecturers to resume work. But that is not the end of the matter. There is still the substantive appeal challenging the ruling of the National Industrial Court. The 3-member panel of the Court of Appeal, led by Justice Hamma Barka, says the union can appeal, but only after it resumes work.
You heard the court considering the interest of students who had been locked out of school and educational infrastructure that had been locked down for the past 8 months, and saying that order of the National Industrial Court must be obeyed today, and upon proof of compliance of that order, they can file a notice of appeal. We had made the point that there was no appeal before this court.
So, ASUU is expected to hit the 21st September order of the National Industrial Court to call off the strike.
We will get the ruling of the court and we will advise our client appropriately as the court had enjoined Mr. Femi Falana-Essien. But I can assure you, and I'm assuring you again, just like Mr. Femi Falana-Essien assured yesterday, that there are already machineries in motion to ensure that the strike is called off as soon as possible.
Students are obviously excited by the new court order and are urging both sides to settle their differences amicably to avoid future strikes.
Let the ASUU obey the court order. Meanwhile, let the government fulfill its own part to ASUU, so that we will not have this issue again. 8 months, and on this note, I would like to call on the Nigerian students to remain calm and prepare themselves as we are going back to class. Let us be law-abiding citizens. And of course, we'll start the struggle of compensation from the government. We can't be losing months without any compensation.
The appeal court has tied ASUU's immediate resumption of work immediately to the appeal, and this should happen within 7 days. It means the permission given by the appellate court to the union to appeal will be automatically vacated if it does not resume work in the given 7 days. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Those were the lawyers of the 2 elephants, ASUU and the federal government. And then the grass, if I get it right, that's the students, all battling to see how they can sort out the problem. Well, earlier today, President Muhammadu Buhari submitted a proposed budget of 20.5 trillion naira to the National Assembly for the year 2023. Among many other things, the budget has a recurrent expenditure of 8 trillion and capital expenditure of 5.35 trillion. Also, the budget had a marked 3.6 trillion naira for fuel subsidy for the 2023 fiscal year. Take a look at this report as packaged by Trust TV.
Naira per US dollars. While giving a breakdown of the budget, the president said the 2023 transition budget was designed to address critical issues and lay a solid foundation for the incoming administration.
To further address structural problems in the economy and drive growth, capital releases thus far have been prioritized in favor of critical ongoing projects in the power, roads, rail, agriculture, as well as health and education sectors. As at the end of July 2022, the fiscal operations of the federal government resulted in an estimated budget deficit of 4.63 trillion naira.
The proposal has 744.11 billion naira earmarked for statutory transfers, 470 billion naira for universities revitalization in 2023, and 8.27 trillion naira for non-debt recurrent expenditure, as well as 5.35 trillion naira for capital expenditure. The budget deficit is projected at 10.78 trillion naira. The president stated that the budget deficit will be financed mainly by new borrowings.
We have resorted to borrowing to finance our fiscal gaps. We have been using loans to finance critical development projects and programs aimed at further improving our economic environment and enhance the delivery of public services to our people. As we are aware, we have witnessed 2 economic recessions within the period of this administration. A direct result of this is a significant decline in our revenue generation capacity.
President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, earlier in his opening remarks, commended President Buhari's administration for being consistent in delivering of landmark infrastructure across the country, saying it is important for 2023 budget to prioritize the completion of the ongoing projects. Speaking on how to reverse the increasing trend of deficit in the nation's budget, he lamented the low level of revenue generation, noting that oil theft remains a major challenge. The 2023 budget is tagged Budget of Fiscal Sustainability and Transition.
What happened at the National Assembly today will be the focus of the conversation tonight, as this is the last budget presentation by President Muhammadu Buhari. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I am Hamza Idris. We are joined in the studio by Tunde Salman. He is the team lead, Good Governance Team, Nigeria. We are also joined by Mukhtar Modibo, a Community Engagement Manager at Connected Development, CODE. You are welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we are also joined virtually by Eze Oyekpere. He is the lead director at the Center for Social Justice. Welcome to the program. Good. Well, gentlemen, maybe today I should start with you. You've seen what happened at the Court of Appeal today. What is your take? Do you think ASUU will go back to classroom with the judgment?
I think for me personally, I want to appeal to ASUU to obey the ruling of the Court of Appeal and go back to the classrooms. It's been 8 months now, about 8 months that the university have been shut down. It's not good for us. It's not in our best image. I also want to appeal to government to listen to ASUU. There must be a middle ground on this. You understand? There must be a middle ground from both parties. Government must show sincerity. Over the years, in the last quarter of a century, there have been a kind of insincerity on the part of the federal government and other stakeholders to also adequately fund the university system. We must define the kind of university we want and the kind of financing instruments that we will need to finance our universities system to compete effectively with other universities across the world. That's my take.
Mukhtar, the panel of justices there, they said they should go back to classroom and then appeal the judgment of the industrial court. Do you think by the time they go back and appeal, they will achieve their goal of asking the federal government to do all those things they've been yearning for over the years?
So you know, that's a very difficult question, because the panel of justice that sat on that case have the technical know-how to do that, and they have done it. I think it's in the best interest of everybody if ASUU is clamoring or if ASUU is doing what they are doing, because of is in the best interest of the people. Because largely in everything we do, you're meant to do something with the people, by the people, and for the people. And if they're doing it with the people, by the people, and for the people, in the interest of the people, then I think, you know, this is a competent court of full jurisdiction that sat and now come up with a verdict that, okay, the industrial court was right for it to say go back to the classroom, and then so all you could do is go back to the classroom and then appeal the judgment. But if we take it back, as a young person, I think there has been a lot of negligence from the previous government to the present government. I don't think what have been happening is sustainable. So all we need to do is, whenever we are making policies as government, we need to be deliberate in making that government, in making that policy, and we need to be systematic. Systematic in the sense that, so that we don't get to see deliberate effort that we did not make coming back to haunt us. I don't think a sensible person, not just a leader, a sensible person will be happy seeing other people's children or some people suffering from just a neglect of the system. So I don't want to be in the side of ASUU. I don't want to be in the side of government. But I don't think including the ASUU chairman will be happy seeing what is happening, right? Because I mean, children are in school. A lot of people that are meant to be graduating have not graduated, right? A lot of people that are meant to progress have not progressed. A lot of people are still leaving the country. So as a young person, I will say, oh, okay, someone that is meant to graduate at the age of 21 years to compete with his people all over the world is being stalled to stay for another year. So I think what we need to be looking into is, what do we do
to solve the problem?
To solve the problem in its entirety.
Yeah, Tunde, people are also saying this undue delay is also affecting the age of the students to be enrolled for NYSC and even for job opportunities.
Yeah, as he rightly pointed out, when the system have a fault, it affects everything. You understand? Both the government and the student and the ASUU, the whole stakeholder within that sector. I could recall as another graduate in the university, a course that's supposed to run for 5 years, do this kind of situation, we end up spent in 6 years. You understand? At no time, if you have passed through the Nigerian university system in the last 25 to 30 years, either as an undergraduate or postgraduate student, you understand, at one time or the other, this kind of decent kind of strike comes, not because it is what ASUU wants, you understand? It is
very funny. Look at what we have on the screen there. Yeah, that was 1981, I think, that ASUU may call off strike. That is how many years now? That is
almost
40 years later, we are still battling with
this. Meaning that
issue.
What is the problem? How do we solve some of these issues? You understand? For instance, if you look at the university system, we must also acknowledge that our university system is relatively cheaper because a lot of people will not be able to afford it if government introduced tuition fee, for instance. And at one time or the other, the issue of tuition fee will come to play. That's why I say, how do we fund the university system innovatively, strategically, without making access difficult to a large number of people?
Yeah, thank you very much. Eze, if you were with us, this decision by the Court of Appeal is coming few days after the registration of CONWA by the federal government. How do you reconcile this multiplicity of actions maybe to compel the teachers to go back to classrooms?
Well, let me start by saying that I'm firmly of the view that court judgments are to be obeyed. But in this particular matter, I am a little because it will be very extremely difficult to police the enforcement of this judgment to later. It could be easy to say ASUU has called off the strike, but how easy will it be to ensure that they go back to class wholeheartedly, teach as they're supposed to do, with 8 months backlog of salaries being claimed, not being happy and being very poor and almost dissolute? So this kind of problems are best settled at the table. They are not ideally subject to the winner takes all approach of the courts. Just like if the doctors are on strike, imagine this scenario, and you have a surgery to do, and the Court of Appeal or Supreme Court simply tells the doctors to go back. I don't know how comfortable you feel to submit yourself to surgery, knowing that it may be difficult if the person is going to prove anything. So the morale of the teachers will be very low, and it may be very difficult to police them to do their work as they ought to do. So this is a no-win situation for anybody. They have to go back to the negotiation table and resolve this matter. And secondly, you don't bring new ideas of education funding at a time a union is simply saying, let's enforce an earlier agreement. This is something to bring in peacetime when there is no problem or no quarrels on the table. Or it is beyond the union. Approach to education that we now have a consensus. Don't wait until there's a crisis before you begin to think of new ideas of education funding.
Thank you very much, Eze, for your take on these contentious issues, and also thank you very much for your intake. Well, this is where we'll stop on the tidbit. We'll take a short break so that we start the conversation of the day, the budget presentation by President Muhammadu Buhari. Don't go away.
That's great. Good to see you.
If you are just joining us, this is Daily Politics, and our topic of discussion today is Buhari's presentation of last budget. Welcome back. Yes, Tunde, I should start with you. Even though the president did not actually explain in details the budget performance of 2022, what is your take on the year that is now rounding up?
Thank you very much. I think in the issue of Nigerian public budget system is a quite worrisome thing for us, because we've been following the budget for a while, from a budget of roughly something slightly above 500 billion in 1999 when we had these transitions to civil rule. Now we have a budget of 23 trillion, and people cannot still pick out tangible, you understand, outcome, in terms of budget outcome, in terms of the impact of the budget. This is concern, and civil society and other stakeholders have actually identified some of the gaps or challenges in our budget issue related in politics. One of these is that the budget implementation is always low, but now we are facing a very tight fiscal system where the entire budget is predicated on deficits. You understand? We wonder,
more than half of it.
Yeah. We wonder why is it that we can't have a balanced budget? I'm not aware in the last 20 or 23 years that we've been running this democracy, we've been able to balance our budget. Talk less of the fact that the impact of the budget is also low. People cannot pick it up, you understand? These are some of those things. But we've had scenario over the years where, because of the fiscal saving, you understand, the tightness of revenue, we don't feel it when we used to have, because of the excess crude oil accounts in those days, savings to that fund and the sovereign investment, national sovereign wealth fund, we're able to create a buffer for our system. But now we don't have such kind of thing. We are borrowing and worrying, in the sense that the president was at the UN General Assembly about 3 weeks ago, you understand, mooted the idea of debt forgiveness, and then now we still want to borrow. we must find a way to move away from borrowing. But how do we generate the revenue that we need to fund our budget? Then what is the impact of the budget? Because people will be happy if they can see clearly that our tax revenue, this is what is giving us. But we are a system driven largely by monolithic economy based on the oil rent and revenue. This is some of those things that have also created a kind of imbalance in our budget, because it's over the year we've not been successfully diversify our revenue base to the extent that we can now boast that the revenue actually comes from non-oil, because anything that affect that sector, everybody feels it, that and created a lot of imbalances in the system. This is my own concern. You must, in spite of this humongous amount of money, trillion, what does it translate to in terms of productivities? What does it translate to? Even when we are discussing ASUU the other time, the economy around ASUU itself, any state or any locality where you have universities, and it has been sought for about how many months now? Meaning that almost 25 to 30% of the productivity or economy of that location is sucked down. You understand? These are some of those issues. We must be able to link all these things together. Otherwise, we'll be just moving without motion.
Yes, Mukhtar, the president said, of course, it is his last budget, but he rolled out a lot of successes, especially in infrastructure. He mentioned the Niger Bridge, many roads, Abuja, Kaduna, the rail, and all that. Are you satisfied with what he said, that there was massive development in these sectors in the last 7 years?
No, so I just want to help and put it in this context. Now I'm going to be as lay as I can be as a layman, right? So when we talk about the infrastructural development that Mr. President mentioned, there are some places that I can mention: the Port Harcourt new terminal, the rail in Lagos, right? The new terminal in the Abuja airport, the new terminal in the Kano airport, the second Niger Bridge, as you rightly mentioned. But let's come back to Abuja, and I'll give you one instance. Now, if you go to central area, from central area to the airport, there is a rail that is in place, which is a train that will pick people from the airport to the town, right? We have Maraba Nyanya to central area. We have Kubwa to central area. You know how many number of people come in from Maraba Nyanya, Ado, or whatever, that side, come
from
into
the
town.
outskirts.
So if we have a rail, right, that we borrowed money, like what we did on this particular one, we borrowed money to implement that, I think we will go a long way in helping. But I just want to tell you something around these issues of infrastructure. In the university sector, the university has been locked on key for how many months? We are just recovering from COVID. COVID really hit every economy really hard. Immediately after the hits of COVID, we've gotten this strike. The person that is selling fura and food in the university sector, right, inside the university, the economy has been crippled.
So you're talking about job losses.
Thank you. So when we talk about infrastructural development, you're not doing the infrastructural development for you yourself. You're doing it for the people. Commend him on other aspects.
But the rail you mentioned, the light rail, it was not actually him who... We did an extensive story in Daily Trust on that. Of course, the location where they put the track and the main office is actually misplaced and all that. But what he was saying is that he was able to complete the Lagos-Ibadan, completed Abuja and Kaduna.
I am not saying whether complete or not complete, right? What I am saying is, what is the sustainability of that particular thing? What is the durability? What is the stability in those businesses? Now, Kaduna Abuja trend, we've all been using it, right? Times without number, the trend stops, right? As we speak, for the past how many months, because of insecurity, right? We could not access that trend, right? At some point. So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is, if there is advancement in something, bring something that will hold it. Before we talk about this budget, we talked about education sector.
Yeah.
Before, when you come to the education sector, you'll be asking yourself, what are the challenges? The challenges will be maybe sometimes early child marriage of girls in all the part of the country, issues of poverty, issues of lack of financing in the budget and what have you.
Yeah.
But now we have to add another thing. Issues of insecurity, issues of climate change, issues of a law in funding of the budget. So just to talk about it, it's not just about infrastructure.
Yeah.
We have benchmark on everything.
Thank you
From
very
the
much.
Abuja Declaration.
Yeah, we will come back to that.
Yeah.
But Eze, if you are with us, the president has increased the budget. The earlier projection was around 19 trillion. Now over 20 trillion, and more than half of this is coming through loans and all that. In an election year, how feasible is this, and how impactful will it be to the generality of Nigerians?
Well, let me also start by saying that it's not just about the figures that are proposed, but about the budget. Here that you have only about 9 trillion in revenue, and you are going to have a deficit of 10 point something billion, which is revenue, then there's a problem. And we are also discussing 8 trillion. It's about 6.5 something trillion to service existing debts. So at the end of the period, when President Muhammadu Buhari will be leaving office, could possibly run up to between 175 to 200 billion dollars. In Naira terms, it could possibly be up to 80 trillion. So this is not a sustainable way to budget, because the idea is we are in a hole because of the debt situation, and that the best thing we need to do, begin to think of how we can climb out from that hole rather than digging deeper. And then, like was being said by Tunde Salman, we are going about thinking of forgiveness at a time we are also borrowing more. So this is not the way to go. It's not sustainable, particularly consider the continuation of fuel subsidy against the background of the process of the PIA. The expectation was also that in this year, we could begin the gradual withdrawal, the gradual phasing out of fuel subsidy. And if it will cause a lot of hardship in the system, we can think of cushioning the impact on the poor through some strategic investments in food and through some investments also in areas like transport. So for me, the budget seems a bit unrealistic, particularly if you look at the figures coming out from 2022. You can see that most of the return revenue being sought, they're only doing about 63% of it. So even that smaller component of the revenue of 2023, the chances are that it may not materialize. So we are going to even run bigger deficits if we are to implement that budget to the later. But I don't think that is the way, considering our already precarious debt situation.
Okay. Tunde, you have heard what Eze said, that maybe the best way to go is to start, phasing out fuel subsidy. How possible will it be? Because already there is a provision to that effect. And who will be the greatest loser if subsidy is removed now?
Thank you very much for that question. The issue of subsidy, you understand, is a very sensitive issue. But over the last couple of years, particularly in the last 1 decade, that this issue has been recurring, there is a lot of convergence of thought. Especially by some of the actors, you understand, that felt, no, this thing should not be, you understand, because it's a larger political economic issue that goes beyond the budget. It is about the survival of the country, you understand, in terms of when this is a loophole where we've seen what has happened in terms of claim over the subsidy, how the subsidy have grown over the years. But by and large, these are some of the things Nigerians should be debate as we are in the electionary campaign season.
Yeah.
You understand? If a critical component like labor You understand? And the Labour presidential candidate has said that, yeah, if given opportunity, if elected, he will, you understand, take that in strong decision on subsidy. And that Labour Party themselves too, and the Labour movement generally, and other leftist movement have not come against that, meaning that there is a window of hope in terms of building larger consensus about this removal of subsidy. No doubt, all observers of Nigerian fiscal governance system see that there is a challenge in subsidy. Personally, I have my own opinion, because one of these issues is the fact that if you take a look at the downstream sector of that industry, petroleum industry, we've seen a lot of issues that we can address quickly. But because of opacity around the downstream sector too, this concern has not been effectively addressed. What I meant by this is that if we have sufficiency in domestic refining of petroleum products, we will now use like 3 stones, 1 stone to create 3 birds.
Yes.
We will save foreign exchange, we will create wealth, you understand, and also create jobs. And it will reduce the amount of subsidy that goes for consumption. Because people said, even in economic literature, they said, look, if you over-subsidize consumption, you are creating distortion in the economy. That what you should subsidize, you understand, is production. These are debates on the table, and these are things that I also want members of academic union to also provide solutions to it. It beyond one person. It's a general political economic question that, look, we cannot be wasting our resources in order to pay subsidy. But the issue now is, how do we guarantee affordable or reasonable availability of petroleum products that is not overtearing our pocket? You understand? There are other people who say, look, we have maybe the cheapest petrol across our
since
mates.
it is ours, people should even be given for free. I want your take. Yes, Mukhtar, because at the budget presentation, the president said he wasn't comfortable, and it is all realistic. Even the figures coming out of this fuel subsidy, they are all realistic. Ahead of 2015, he said he don't even believe in anything subsidy. Peter Obi is also saying the same thing now. While the senators there, the Senate president and the speaker on their side, they now said it's not even about subsidy, but the leakages, oil theft and all that. How do we reconcile, our leaders talking from both sides of their mouth?
So the truth is, right, we have leaders, and we have what is called so-called leaders, and we have what is called rulers. To be honest with you, I'll be very straight and direct.
Okay.
What we have is, when you talk about subsidy, who are you subsidizing the product for?
The poor.
Right? The poor. You think it's the poor.
I'm not saying it. This is what the leaders are saying.
Thank you. So if you're subsidizing the product for the poor, right? How many people are accessing the product now? Go out in Abuja today. This is the Federal Capital Territory. Do we have the fuel? No. I just bought a black market to come to this studio. Why? Because there is no access road for the product to come in here. Then what is the essence? So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is, nothing has been defined to a barest minimum for people to understand. Now, for someone that wants to come to the office, for someone that wants to form government, every politician in Nigeria understands the problem of Nigeria, right? But immediately he assumed the power. I don't know, maybe they wipe that problem, the solutions of the problem. So I don't believe in any of these things. What I believe in is, in whatever we do, let's define the problem to the people that are enjoying the problem. Because literally, aside me and you that understand what is happening, the common man in my village or in Koma or in Minjibir or in where does not understand what is the problem he or she is enjoying in subsidy. Now forget about our product is the cheapest, right? Go to anywhere that they have the same product. It's not as cheap as ours, but the cheapness that we're enjoying, how are we suffering to pay back the something? You and I are just having a conversation of a budget that half of that budget is in deficit. So in a normal layman language, that means we don't have the money, we're going to borrow that money, we're going to collect loan
in order to finance the budget.
And then aside that, we're still going to borrow money to service debt. Now, in a layman language, we're going to collect money, we're going to collect loan to service loan. Wow. I don't know if you understand.
Maybe 360 of sort.
Thank you. So the reality is, I'm going back to what I said earlier. How deliberate do we make efforts? How systematic do we put this effort? We've been paying subsidy for a very long time, right? Today we have the PIA, right? What is the PIA doing to us? What is the PIA doing to a common man?
Well, it is going to be effective from July, I think, the next year because of so many issues around
Thank you. So go to Akwa Ibom State, go to Delta State, or go to Imo State and talk to them about PIA, right? You will know that there is discrepancies because in some other state, the PIA is going to reduce what they are having. In other state, the PIA is going to increase what they are having. So how do you balance it? You get? So the reality is we have to always go back to that paper, right? To understand how we make policy so that one person will not enjoy from the other person. And that's why I don't like it when we sit here and talk about numbers. I think what we need to be telling people is we're in a dilemma.
And how do we resolve it?
How we resolve it.
So let me ask as this question. If you are with us, people said a lot of leakages. Yeah, we have a lot of leakages, and that is why even if we borrow the money, they don't really translate into concrete projects that people can see and identify with. How do you think we can solve this problem so that even if we borrow, because all over the world borrowing is not wrong, it's how you utilize it. So in what areas do you think we can now, block these leakages so that the money will go directly to the people?
Okay, just like you said, Responsibility Act is clear on the terms and conditions of borrowing. It said borrowing should be for capital expenditure and human development. It means we are not permitted to borrow to pay salaries. We are not permitted to borrow for overheads. Neither are we permitted to borrow, start paying back or servicing debts. So if you look at the deficit, 10 trillion, out is a proposal for about billion expenditure. That will clearly tell you that we are going to borrow about billion more, which will not go to capital expenditure. And over the years, in no year have we met the actual expenditure in capex. We've always spent 5. At the end of the day, we will spend 3, or maximum we spend 4. So in essence, there's a lot of waste in the system. For instance, some of us have always believed that there's a lot. Go back to 2015, as at the time the former administration left, NFPC was claiming subsidy on 35 billion liters a day. And this was after a series of probes in the National Assembly and in the Executive where it was established that people were filing first to claim subsidy. And some people were actually being prosecuted. So the whole idea to citizens was that like 5 to 10 million liters a day was a job for the police. Now, fast forward to today, after 2 recessions, after massive factory closures, after virtually the highest unemployment rate since independence, high inflation rate, and all the macroeconomic indicators headed south, we are subsidy on 68 liters a day. It doesn't balance. The evidence is not there. So clearly, the first thing we should have done is a transparent audit of our consumption, and it may down that we may not be doing more than 30-35 billion liters. And that may become much more manageable. So that when we say remove the subsidy, we know we are getting some money that can be invested in other. Oversight Committee report, I think that report needs to be revisited.
Okay,
And retweaked, you know, so
yeah.
that it can, a good part of it can
to
be
streamline the
I'm not saying
agencies.
they should be sacked.
Okay.
It can be rigid.
All right. Thank you very much. Tunde, today something dramatic happened, but very few people took note of it. I took note of it. You know, a few days ago, the Senate strongly recommended these government-owned enterprises. You are talking about, I think, NCC, you are talking about customs, you are talking about Federal Inland Revenue Service, among many others, that they should be removed from the budget in order to now push them to generate more revenue, right? And then to ease things for the government. But today, during the presentation, the president passed a strong warning that it has come to his notice that some of these agencies are actually liaising in court with the senators to have their own budget, and at the end of the day, they go outside what he proposed to spend. How can we get it right? Especially some of these agencies, as I said, they are meant to generate revenue for the government, but the president also wants to now continue to get hold of them while our legislators want them to be released so that they can do the right thing.
I think my take on that is that, you know, budget itself is the center of politics. Budget is what converts the promises, programs, political promises to projects and programs, you understand? And those state-owned enterprise, another agency of government that are, their budgets normally accompanying the federal budget, there is a need, you understand, to have more increased transparency in the budget space and the participation of the citizens. If you look at the work we try to promote within the OGP Fiscal Transparency Group, is to expand access for citizens to engage the process.
Yeah.
But over the since COVID-19, most of the progress we made before the present assembly were reversed, you understand, in terms of providing opportunity for civil society and other citizens to participate in the budget public hearing. And since COVID-19 lockdown, that has not happened. A lot of things will be happening that we are not aware. You understand, at the formulation stage and all this. And even when the National Assembly was considering the MTEF, and they were having bilateral discussion with all these revenue generating agency, the space was not created for any civil society or any outside actors to participate in that process. And this is where most of this deal can be cut. You understand? There's nothing bad in engaging, but the executive understanding,
the desired input.
You understand, to get this, because budget itself, as I said, is a politics, and it's a contestation of idea. What will I get for my own MDA? But it must align with the thinking of the government, the executive. While the legislature, with the power of the purse, cannot approve. But we have seen that there's not convergence in the
synergy,
it's synergy between them. If you look at the content of the framework of the fiscal responsibility, is to bring all actors within the budget cycle for continuous engagement,
right,
so that we know the area of concern. Sometimes, you understand, maybe the entire budget of NNPC, maybe the differential between the NNPC budget and national budget may not be more than just few billions of naira. You understand? What is the entire size of the public sector? Face the other element of the economy, the GDP. There may not be maybe a clear cut in terms of, okay, this will be the size of the public sector. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the resources to run your budget, and we have a very big oversized public sector that is not adding much value. My brother was talking about the issue of infrastructure the other time. When you have the infrastructure, but the other element of the infrastructure, which is the substructure, to make the infrastructure work, is not there. And these are evidence of failures of governance. These are gaps in the governance space.
That must be correct. And this is where I want to ask him a question, because your organization follows the budget, and based on our, it follows the money. Based on our findings, over 600 or thereabout, 60,000 projects, they have not been completed. What is your take on this, and how can we actually approach these projects, complete them for the benefit of Nigerians?
Okay, so two things. First, do we do project with sustainability? And do we create ownership in the project we do? Complete, no. And I will give you a reason. Now, when you implement something, if I come to Trust TV, I'm going to repair this. Who is going to use this table? You and other people are going to be using this. And if I did not show you that this thing is yours, if you manage it well after repairs, it's going to help you. Will you take ownership? You will not, right? So we don't do project with ownership, and then we don't do project with sustainability.
But is it responsible for the non-completion?
No, yeah, I'm going there. So when I said sustainability here, I'm talking about continuity, right? 4 years, 8 years is the entire time life cycle of an administration. So a project might start, right? But the lifespan of that project might be more than the administration time. The next administration that will come might not want to complete that, because that is not what I do. I'll give you a lot of examples. Go to Kebbi. The state secretariat in Kebbi is suffering something like that. The previous administration started, and this present administration is not completed. There are a lot of projects like that, right? So from the citizen, there is a bit of a fault. From the government, there is a big fault. The government does not give citizen ownership, right, of that particular project for them to track. And then you cannot track what you don't know. We have massive deficiency of where a central pool of data system. We don't have data system. There are a lot of secrecy in our sector. Because if you look at it, we have what is called freedom of information law, right, in Nigeria, subject to domestication in the states, right? Is only one state that has signed up to the FOI, which is Delta State.
All the rest are
all the rest have not.
The
remaining states have their own peculiar FOI, right? We have places like Kaduna, we have Ekiti and some other states. So what am I trying to say? Citizens cannot track what is not given to them, and citizens cannot track what they don't know. And that's what brings to the uncompleted
a serious problem. The president has presented the budget, but he may not likely implement all of it. What areas do you think he should concentrate on so that he gets value for his last budget, and your advice for the incoming president? In 1 minute, please.
I think the president should insist on because it has caused a lot of havoc in the economy and in the polity. He should also look at his key signature projects that are so dear to him, particularly the infrastructure ones, and complete them, as well as ensure in his handover notes that sufficient details and cost-benefit analysis are given to the incoming administration so that they can continue, because government is a continuity, it's not about incumbent. Whoever is taking over should be able to continue any project that he has started, in as much as it will still be beneficial to the Nigerian economy.
All right, thank you very much, Eze. I want to hear yours. Just
I align with him. You understand? Since he has prioritized infrastructure, he must ensure that as many number of that infrastructure are complete within the next 5 or 6 months that he has.
All right, Mukhtar?
Yeah, so for me, I will say he has significant project. So I will say complete them and give ownership to people. And let's run government, something that is meant to be public, in a public way, not in a private way. And let's have good governance picture as the last term so that he makes legacy for himself.
All right, Mukhtar Maudubo, Community Engagement Manager, Connected Development, CODE. We thank you for your perspective. Tunde Salman, Team Lead, Good Governance Team Nigeria. Thank you for your input on what the president said. And Eze Onyekpere, Lead Director, Center for Social Justice, who will join us virtually. We want to thank you very much for your informed perspective. And we hope that even though it is election year, the president will do something big, including all the governors, in prioritizing what they do while they round up their tenure. This is where we come to the end of the program today, hoping you will join us tomorrow for another edition of the program. Thank you for watching. I'm Hamza Idris. Bye-bye.